Hello, fellow horror fiends, and welcome to The Horror Within Me, a podcast dedicated to the world of horror. Join us each week as our host explores a new, horrifying topic from the many realms of horror, such as film, television, and more, and returns to tell us his terrifying revelations. So sit back, relax, and get ready to face the horrors within.
Hi, and welcome back to another episode of The Horror Within Me. It is me, your host, Eric, and it is time for another Spooky Sunday together. Last week, there was no brand new episode, so just in case you were wondering if you couldn't find it or if you had any issues with your computer or wherever you listen to podcasts, the answer is no. We did not record a new one. It was the weekend of Thanksgiving, and I was really busy and spending time with friends and family, as I hope all of you were spending time with friends and family, so there was no new episode. But this is a brand new episode, and we're back together, and it's the first weekend in December. And before we start all the holiday talk and Christmas and everything, because I always wait until December, because I like to do all my other shit first, I want to continue on the idea of Thanksgiving really quickly, only because it has inspired this week's episode. So when I think of Thanksgiving, aside from the family drama and all of that shit that you might think of, I think of leftovers. I love food, and I think like I always overcook, so I always have like days and days and days and days and days of Thanksgiving food left over that I end up eating for 3-4 days. I don't know if anybody else does that, but it had me thinking about like looking at my content calendar over here and the types of things that I like to talk about and think maybe you would like to talk about with me. And one of the things I think is a big debate in the horror universe, especially, are remakes versus originals, right? We have diehard fans of both, and the interesting thing with remakes and originals is usually there's a large span of time, right, between the two that host different generations experiencing them, right? So like for example, my generation might have seen the original Halloween at a young age, whereas my niece or nephews may have seen the Rob Zombie Halloween first. And so I think the perceptions are different, and I love the debate. So if you have debates on remakes and originals that either you think all remakes are terrible and none of them surpass the original, or all originals are great, whatever side of the argument you are on, my purpose for this episode is to look at the IMDb ratings and Rotten Tomato ratings just at face value to see which ones actually performed based off of that better and close some of those ideas, right? So that's what we're going to do. We're not going to get into personal taste very much because everyone has personal taste. I like certain things more than other people. Blah, we're not going to get into it. So that's what this week's episode is going to be. It's going to be these are the ratings. I picked 10 of my favorite remakes and originals, put them in a list, have them on my notes here. We're going to read them together, and I'm going to answer if any remakes have better ratings than their original inspirations or whatever the case is. And that's really it. That's going to be this week's episode. Short, sweet, fun, and spooky as always. So before we start diving into all the ratings of these 10 movies, we are going to do this week's terrifying trivia question. Okay. So this week's terrifying trivia question is our first ever true or false question. And it's probably an easy one, but sometimes they're easy. Sometimes they're not. I like to make them up on my own, so I don't know how easy or not easy they are. So this week's terrifying trivia question is as follows. True or false? Brad Dourif, who provides the voice of Chucky, returned to the role in the 2019 remake. Stick around to the end of the episode to get the answer. All right, so remakes versus originals. I don't want any hate. This is why I'll give my opinions on some of the movies. Some of these I haven't seen all of the either original or the remake, but they are popular amongst the universe and in our community, right? So I put them on the list. So I'm gonna start off with a bang, right? So the first one, so I'm gonna go through the 10 each of the original ratings, and then we'll do the remake ratings, and then we'll answer whether or not they are better or worse. So first up, of course, is 1978's Halloween. Okay. We all know me. We can see. Do you see my Michael? He's got a little Santa hat on. Yes, I did decorate my space a little bit. We got a little fireplace here that's kind of there with stockings. So if you're just listening, I just describe the ambiance of the room. There's a blanket behind me. It says Halloween from the Curse of Michael Myers. I'm looking to get something else to put there, maybe a poster or something on the door. We have the Jason mask. But yeah, there's the stockings, and then I have like a little Charlie Brown tree on top that you can't see. I also need a better webcam, but work in progress, work in progress. So yeah, Michael's gonna be with us all year, no matter what. We love Michael. He's always gonna be there. Maybe we'll put different things on him at different times. Let me know. Go on Facebook, send me an email, send me a message. Maybe we'll put glasses on him. Maybe we'll do a ghost behind him one time. I don't know. Let's have fun with it. Anyway, Halloween 1978. I don't want to lose myself here. The rating on IMDb is a 7.7 out of 10 and a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes. And we've discussed that before. I do these ratings every week. And when I did the Halloween episode for Halloween, I went through all of the different ratings. So we know that it had really good ratings. And we also know the counterpart, but we'll get to that eventually. Halloween is known as like the birth of the slasher genre, even though there was other horror that others may argue hold that title. I'm not here to debate with anyone. I'm just here to say that Halloween was the birth of my obsession with horror. It was always ranked. It was Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th. And ironically, that is just subconsciously the order of our first three movies that we're going to talk about and their ratings. But anyway, the original Halloween, what do you got? You have low budget, which is always good for the older movies in the beginning, but these cult classics, they're all low budget. Not a lot of blood, but there was a lot of work you can tell put into it. A lot of depth, character development, things that you liked about it, certain aspects that you see have become staples throughout the series. So when it's such a beloved, iconic, original starter, we're not going to talk about the sequels at all. We're just going to talk about the original. So it's going to be really difficult to create something else from that's reminiscent of what we know, right? And then put your own spin on it. But Halloween 1978, great ratings, great movie, right? The second movie is, as I said, A Nightmare on Elm Street. 1984 it was released. The rating on IMDb is a 7.4 out of 10 and a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. It doesn't shock me that the first Nightmare on Elm Street has such good ratings. I personally scares the shit out of me, and Freddy was he was scary in a different way than Michael and Jason, and not in a way that because he got you in your dreams, right? But it was Robert Englund's presence and the way that he was using his comedy for terror, but not in a comedy tone. Like, it was maniacal. It was terrifying because he was unhinged. You could see the pleasure that he got out of torturing these teens and letting them feel the sense of certain controls that they were in their dreams having, but really at the end of the day, he was always there, always in control, and just played these games with these kids, which were terrifying. And I think that was something that really stuck to me with the character of Freddy Krueger. And as we move on through the installments, we always, some are way more comical and cheesy than others. especially as you keep going into a franchise. There's only so much you can do and so much story and depth without repeating the same thing over and over and over and over again. But the original Nightmare on Elm Street, I agree with these ratings. I will forever be like a beloved first introduction of horror with me. The third one we have on the list is Friday the 13th, 1980. The rating on IMDb is, I lost my spot, 6.4 out of 10 and a 63% on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, some might say that it won't be fair to compare the Friday the 13th original movie to the remake, but I don't make the rules, people. It's not my fault that, the original Friday the 13th does not have Jason Voorhees as the main antagonist, right? It's Pamela Voorhees, Jason's mother, which it is a good movie and it's not a good movie at the same time. Like, it set up elements. It was clearly like piggybacking off the success of 1978's Halloween to the point where they're like, Halloween did good. What other holiday? What other thing? Let's do Friday the 13th, right? And they picked this, but the plot was well done, in my opinion. It's realistic, and I think that everyone's so used to Jason Voorhees after the first Friday the 13th that we neglect Pamela Voorhees' rite of passage of being such a great motivative killer. She lost her mind, I think. I don't know if she was always crazy, but I think Pamela lost her mind a little bit when she lost her son. He drowned because of these neglectful, horny teenagers that were off screwing somewhere instead of watching their, her son. And she worked at the camp too. So she wasn't just a mother off. She was working there and they lived there, and her son was, had disabilities and disformations or whatever the case is, and was teased and like drowned. So I think something snapped in Pamela to where she could hear her son telling her to get revenge. And that's the Pamela we meet. But as a mom, you have to almost sympathize with her for snapping and then wanting to get revenge on any counselor that's there, because in an unstable mind, they're all the same. So whether it was, even though it wasn't the same people responsible for Jason's drowning, in her mind, they wear the uniform, they wear the title. So the title camp counselors are what she was killing, not anything personal with Becky, Rob, or Sue. You know what I mean? So I think that the idea of the original Friday the 13th, from the killer standpoint, was very well done and lacked character development outside of things. There wasn't enough of that. And I would love, and we know with this Crystal Lake show coming out, I'm hoping to get more Pamela, right? Because the Jason character is so tied up with lawsuits and legal this and legal that. Let's dig out Pamela. We haven't done more with Pamela. Very, very little with Pamela. She's been a side character since Friday the 13th and not a lot of emphasis left on her. So let's re-explore the descent of her madness, right? I want to see that. But anyway, those were the ratings for Friday the 13th, 1980. The next on the list is Child's Play, 1988. The rating on IMDb is a 6.6 out of 10 and 71% on Rotten Tomatoes. Okay. When I think of the original Child's Play, I think of the iconic scene where, Mrs. Barkley, and I talked about this in the one episode, opens the back and he has no batteries, and she's like, "Talk to me, damn it, I'm going to throw you in the fire." And he like flips out on her. Like, that will always be a scene. But like, also when he would be running away, it was a small person that in the costume just running away, and it wasn't the doll size. So that's always funny to me. But what made Chucky was the voice of Brad Dourif, right? He was and is amazing. I just finished season 2 of the show. I am obsessed with it. I was like, not, I've always been a fan of Chucky, but I've never been like I am with like Halloween or anything, but I fucking love the show. I think it's so inventive and fun and connects the entire universe together beautifully. So the original Child's Play really set the tone of like the voodoo, and that's scary in a different way because it's with children and they had a small 6-year-old boy and it wasn't teenagers, and this doll was scary in its own right, funny and maniacal in a different way of Freddy in his own creative um sociopathic psychopathic ways, and they do very well with making him not have a conscience, even when they try to have little slivers of him having a conscience, he laughs it off eventually and it's just a mind fuck, right? So I don't know. Child's Play, the first one, introduced us to a lot of good and very bad entries, but ultimately I think they're really, really owning what it is now with the series. So if you haven't checked out the series, definitely go to Sci-Fi and watch season 1 and 2 if you have the app. The next one is an oldie, but I like it. So it's House on Haunted Hill, came out in 1959. The rating on IMDb is a 6.8 out of 10 and 78% on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't know if anyone has ever heard of House on Haunted Hill outside of the remake. Did you even know that it was a remake? I watched the original House on Haunted Hill. We owned it on VHS. My mom loved the original. So I watched the original. And what started out to me in the original was like an acid pit or something where the skeleton came out and like it was fun. Like at a young age had been exposed to much, newer horror for the time, that watching the 1959 House on Haunted Hill, while it wasn't as scary, I appreciated it and I enjoyed it. The next one right under that on the list is even older and the oldest movie on the list, which is House of Wax, released in 1953. My father was born in 1953. My mom wasn't even born when House of Wax came out, but I remember I've never seen the original House of Wax. So the original House of Wax rating on IMDb is a 7 out of 10 and a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. So good ratings. Got some good ratings. But I knew when the remake, sorry, my ear's been like weird today. I knew about the idea of House of Wax because again, my mom was a horror fan and had told me about like wax. She was scared of wax people and stuff. So I had been introduced to it that way and the idea of it, but I don't remember watching the actual original. Under that, you probably have heard of this one, The Hills Have Eyes, released in 1977. The IMDb rating on that is a 6.3 out of 10 and a 67% on Rotten Tomatoes. Did you know that the one that came out after was not the original? Maybe I'm introducing you guys to these ideas that you didn't realize, or maybe you already knew. I don't know. I also did not see the original Hills Have Eyes, but it seems I've heard it's iconic and has decent ratings on the surface. So I'm sure I can get even more dive even deeper into that universe online if I ask some questions. Maybe I will. But from what I gather, it's like the radioactive people that are, they're creepy and scary kind of guys. The next one is an iconic movie, The Amityville Horror, which was released in 1979. The Amityville Horror, still a huge controversy, I think, to this day, but it's a rating of IMDb of 6.1 out of 10 and 32% on Rotten Tomatoes. 32%. I enjoyed the original Amityville Horror. I thought it was scary. The idea that, it's the backstory of the house is true. The family, I don't remember the name, but the one guy that went to jail for killing his family happened and then said something about being possessed. So then the family that moved in, whether you believe in the hauntings or not, said, the devil made me do it, or whatever the case may be. People are speculating that they were doing it just for show or whatever it is, but whatever they say, it's fine. The movie was well done, so it's a perfect setup for a horror movie. And there's so many entries into the Amityville Horror, and I honestly don't think I've seen anything outside of the 1979 original and then the remake that we'll get to. Um, there's like Amityville 3D. Like I don't know. I hear like people just cash grabbing at shit, and I don't get into everything that cheesy. Like I like some depth to things. Like sometimes it's fun for the cheesiness, but that's not my cup of tea. Uh, the next one, another big iconic, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974. Rating of 7.4 on IMDb out of 10 and an 88% on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, I actually own the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre on Blu-ray. I've seen it a few times, not as much as I've seen other entries or remakes of the movie, but it was low budget but scary. The concept of Leatherface and the family was portrayed very terrifying in the original movie, and I think that's the in 1974 the concept, this is even before Halloween, so this is very taboo. I think there wasn't that kind of horror out that much yet, because like I said, the House on Haunted Hills, the House of Wax was a different kind of horror. Then you had Hitchcock's kind of Psycho that started it, but like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was brutal. Hooks and the family and cannibalism and cross-dressing serial killer. Like it was a lot happening in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Let's be honest. But I liked it. And then the last one for the list is The Evil Dead, 1981. Its IMDb rating is a 7.4 out of 10 and 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. And before I reveal the truth to you all, I'm going to let you take a second to remember me, however you remember me, because I have never seen The Evil Dead. And I don't have a reason. I don't know why. I just don't, guys. Maybe I'll find it somewhere to watch. I feel like and it's not because it's so popular that I feel like I need to watch it. I genuinely think that I would enjoy it. It's a type of movie, the type of horror that I'm into from what I see and read about it. So I don't know how I never got into that universe, but I plan on it. So those are our 10 original movies and their ratings. So now let's move down the list and do their counterpart remakes. Okay, coming in first remake, Halloween from Rob Zombie in 2007. The IMDb rating is a 6 out of 10 and a 28% on Rotten Tomatoes. I can appreciate Rob Zombie for what he did. I like the second half of the movie. The entire first half of the movie you can just get rid of. Next, A Nightmare on Elm Street, 2010. IMDb rating of 5.2 and a 14% on Rotten Tomatoes. And this is I completely fucking agree. Trash. Everything about this remake was trash. And they fucking need to do a new Nightmare on Elm Street, just so this cannot be the last fucking entry in this franchise. That cannot be how we put Freddy to bed. Like, just get rid of it. Make a fucking new one. And that's the only amount of time I'm spending on this. Next, Friday the 13th, 2009. 5.5 out of 10 on IMDb and 25% on Rotten Tomatoes. Say what you want. I enjoyed the 13th, remake a lot. I thought it was really good. I thought it was fun. It was fresh. I liked that they had the mom in the beginning, opening credits. They had, Sackboy Jason, Hockey Mask Jason. The thing I didn't like about it, which I said in one of my episodes when I did this show, is I didn't like that there were tunnels and fucking hostages. Like, that wasn't Jason. So, they tried too hard. After that, we have Child's Play that came out in 2019, and that is a 5.7 out of 10 on IMDb, and it's 63% on Rotten Tomatoes. I watched it. It just, it's not really the same. It was like a hacker hacked into a robot kind of thing. It wasn't the voodoo soul transfer that was the scary thing of a serial killer entering into a body and then like attacking people. It wasn't the same. It was different. It wasn't terrible, but I wouldn't group it with other Chucky. movies. It just wasn't anything like it, in my opinion. After that, House on Haunted Hill came out in 1999 with an IMDb rating of 5.6 out of 10 and 31% on Rotten Tomatoes. I loved the House on Haunted Hill remake. I loved Adley Lauder, fucking Taye Diggs, loved it all. Famika, love him. Thought it was really, really good. I thought it was fun. One of my favorites, and I haven't seen it in a long time, so definitely something I'm going to watch again soon. Yeah, love it. Didn't watch the sequel. I don't plan on it. House of Wax, 2005, rating of IMDb rating of 5.4 out of 10 and 27% on Rotten Tomatoes. I did see House of Wax. I thought it was funny with Paris Hilton. Thought it was fine. Thought it was good. I mean, a lot of people are like obsessed with it that I see online. Not one of my favorites. Not terrible. I mean, we're getting into remake territory now, so everyone was coming out with something at this in the early 2000s. You know what I mean? It was fine. The Hills Have Eyes was released in 2006 and 6.4 out of 10 on IMDb and 52% on Rotten Tomatoes. I did see that one once. It scared the shit out of me. It was good. I really liked it. I should watch it again just because I want to now. Because after doing this episode, I'm like, these are movies I've been wanting to revisit again, and I haven't. But yeah, I like The Hills Have Eyes. Coming in after that is The Amityville Horror. Came out in 2005 also, and had a 5.9 out of 10 on IMDb and a 23% on Rotten Tomatoes. And I didn't like the Amityville remake. I didn't even pay attention to that. I didn't think I knew who Ryan Reynolds was then. I'm going to tell you exactly why I didn't like it. I didn't like it because they showed too much at one point. I remember, this is the only thing I remember about the movie now, is there was a scene in like a closet or a bedroom like that, and they like the ghost was up on the ceiling, and like I was able to like get its features and everything. Like I need fast, quick Exorcist type shots, like nothing like that lingers, and that's why I didn't like it. So anyway, coming in after that is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003 remake with a 6.2 out of 10 on IMDb and a 37% on Rotten Tomatoes. And if you listen to my podcast, you already know how I feel about this remake, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time other than the fact that it is my fucking favorite Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie ever, and second to Next Generation, because that shit's just hilarious. And lastly, Evil Dead in 2013, a rating of 6.5 out of 10 on IMDb and a 63% on Rotten Tomatoes. I previously said I'd never seen an Evil Dead. I lied. I saw the remake. It's the one with the girl, right? Yeah. It was fine. I want to see the originals. I want to see the original movies because I feel like I heard good things, and there's a new Evil Dead coming out. And I heard that this, compared to the other one, the Evil Dead did good compared to the originals. I just haven't seen them. But anyway, that is the 10 originals versus the 10 of their remakes. So if you have been listening, now's the time to figure out, I'll let you take some time to figure out if any of the originals were outrated by their remake. And while you're thinking about that, I'm going to go back and I'm going to answer the terrifying trivia question. So we've covered a lot of information, so I'm just going to do a quick recap of what terrifying trivia was. True or false? Brad Dourif, who provides the voice of Chucky, returned to the role in the 2019 remake. And the answer is false, which you probably already knew, but it was still fun to, throw you off. I hope I got you a little bit, right? But so it wasn't Brad Dourif, and it was actor Mark Hamill who did the voice of Chucky in the remake. And if his name sounds familiar, I don't know if you realize this, he played Luke Skywalker in the Star Wars series. So Luke Skywalker was the voice of the new Chucky people. Didn't know if you knew that, but that is the answer to this week's terrifying trivia question. And we are going to wrap up this week's episode with answering the question that we asked in the beginning. Did any of the remakes outrate their original successors? And the answer is there was one. Did you know which one it was? Have you paid attention to all the ratings? I know I talk fast, but the only remake that had higher ratings was The Hills Have Eyes. And it only made it a higher rating on IMDb, not Rotten Tomatoes, and only by like 0.1. So let's look again. Hills Have Eyes IMDb rating, the original 1977 was a 6.3 out of 10, and the remake was a 6.4 out of 10. So like barely did better on IMDb. Like a fucking by a hair, you know what I mean? But it still outperformed. So we, our research has found one. The Hills Have Eyes. So that is the one, people. And do you agree or do you not agree? Go and watch them both and then come over to Facebook and let me know. And join the group, the Horror Within Me podcast on Facebook, even if you follow the Facebook page, because we do a lot of fun stuff in the group as well and a lot more participation there and not just information. But that concludes this week's episode of The Horror Within Me, Remakes versus Originals. If you're looking for more Horror Within Me content, you can find me on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. You can watch these episodes now on the YouTube channel. So go like and subscribe and comment and have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your spooky Sunday. As always, stay safe, but stay spooky.